You know, there are a couple of things that, speaking of November, there are a couple of things that actually upset the president. And of course, the New York Times article this past weekend, the list of the dates, all the receipts, all the president's screw ups. There was a Washington Post, of course, article from last week, 70 days of dithering. I forget the exact headline, but it was 70 days of dithering. Also, Wisconsin, Willie. Make no mistake of it. This is a president that feels the walls closing in. Pennsylvania is Biden country. Good luck in Scranton, Mr. President. Good luck in the suburb Phillies. I'm sure the suburbs of Pittsburgh also right now very concerned at your poor handling of this. He's insulted the governor of Michigan, who is wildly popular there, won't even call her by her name. And then in Wisconsin, we're going to get to those elections in a second. But, Willie, he kept talking about what he did on his toothless China ban at the end of January, which was pathetic. 40,000 people came in after that toothless ban. But just really quickly, I'm just going to run down these quotes really quickly. On February 10th, he said at the White House, we're in great shape. We have 12 cases, 11 cases, and many of them are in good shape now. On February 23rd, almost a full month later, he said, we have it very much under control in this country. On February 24th, the coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. But on February 26th, we're at a low level. As they get better, we take them off the list. Pretty soon, we're going to be down to only 5 people. That was on February 26th. Of course, we know now how many people have died in America. February 26th, he goes in again. When you have 15 people and the 15 people within a couple days is going to be down close to zero, that's a pretty good job that we've done. Close to zero. How many Americans have died of this now?
We're at 22,000?
22,000. February 26th. He said, we're going down, not up, at a press conference. February 27th, he says it's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. That's February 27th. That's like almost a month after he claims that he's doing all of these great things with this toothless China ban. On March the 7th, he says, I'm not concerned at all. No, we've done a great job. I'm not concerned at all. On March the 10th, he said, we're doing a great job with it, and it will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away, Willie. And that was in March. And yet, Willie, more people have died since then than died on 9/11, that died in both Iraq wars, that died in the Afghanistan war. And the president was saying late into February, quote, I'm not concerned at all.
Yeah, Joe, we could read those quotes all morning if you want to go back to late January on CNBC when the President of the United States said we have it totally under control. It's one person in China. On February the 10th when he said, when the April weather comes, it's going to warm up and miraculously this thing will go away. There's no question that he downplayed this for months and months when we should have been ramping up testing, getting PPE into hospitals. That's just a fact. And none of that was in the campaign video that he played in the briefing room yesterday that left out effectively in the entire month of February, along with portions of March and some of that late January quotations that I mentioned. It wasn't there. And that entire briefing was a refutation of that New York Times piece, an attempted refutation of the New York Times piece that made him so angry. Here's an exchange with President Trump and a CBS reporter about all the quotes you just read, the ones I cited that were left out of that video.
Yeah.
What did you do with the time that you bought?
You know
the
we
month
did.
of February. That,
you know we did.
Was a gap.
What do you do?
Month of February.
What do you do when you have no case in the whole United States?
You had cases
when
in February.
Excuse me, you reported it. 0 cases, 0 deaths on January 17th.
February, the entire
January.
month of
I said in January.
Your video has a complete gap.
On January 30th.
What did your administration do in February with the time that your travel ban got
A
you?
lot.
What?
A lot. And in fact, we'll give you a list. What we did, in fact, part of it was up there. We did a lot. Look. You know you're a fake. You know that. Your whole network, the way you cover it, is fake.
Mika, that's what the president does when there is no good answer to that question. You bark down at the reporter, Paula Reed there of CBS. There is no answer. He put in that travel restriction, which, as Joe pointed out, was full of holes and let 40,000 people or so back into the U.S. They did nothing in February, and therein lies the problem. And fundamentally there, guys, when he says we had 0 deaths, we had no problem, what would you have done? Well, the entire point of this, as Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx have said, is to continue on that trajectory, not to take your foot off the gas, to look at those numbers and say, okay, we're good, next problem. No. You put in place these policies that keep the number low. You don't put in one toothless travel ban and walk away.
Well, and Carol Lee, you have also, of course, it's interesting it's a CBS reporter because when was it, a month and a half ago, when a CBS reporter was talking to Kellyanne Conway about this, and Kellyanne Conway said it's contained. Are you a doctor? And started yelling at her and said it's contained, it's completely contained, and then, of course, it exploded. The same time Larry Kudlow said that the coronavirus was contained, and now 20,000 deaths later, here we find ourselves with the president wanting to pretend that the month of February didn't happen.
Yeah, Joe, and he's really just hung on to this China ban. And as you pointed out, there were a number of holes in the travel ban that he initiated early on in January. And the problem is, and when the president, they showed this video yesterday in the briefing room, they quoted Maggie Haberman of the New York Times doing an interview with a podcast saying that, talking about the effectiveness of this ban on China, what they cut out, and she was right about this, is that what she said was that the president acted as if this was his mission accomplished moment. And he's really just zeroed in on that, and it completely ignored everything else that could have been done and should have been done in the weeks after that. And so every time we're in these briefings and he's confronted with what he didn't do, he always reverts back to this ban on travel to China. And yes, it was important, but it wasn't the only thing that he should have done and could have done. And you could create an entire other video of all of those quotes that you all just mentioned, that would paint a dramatically different picture. And the president, what he's trying to do is what he always does when he feels backed into a corner. And I think the question is whether that's going to work this time. And it doesn't seem like it is.
Definitely. Carol Lee, thank you so much. You definitely saw the president backed into a corner yesterday, and you see what happens. I mean, he just starts talking about all of his power and acts like a little baby, to use his language. I just want to read a tweet before we go to break. Liz Cheney felt the need to tweet yesterday evening, "The federal government does not have absolute power." And then she quoted from the Constitution, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution nor prohibited to the states are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." And I think the president really, at this point, is going to find that he's going to hit a wall if he thinks that he's king of America.
I mean,
it's not how it works.
I wonder if Donald Trump knows. I don't wonder. That's a rhetorical question, whether that's the 10th Amendment. I actually had that hanging outside of my office at 127 Cannon House Office Building. So it's good to know that there's some Republicans who actually still believe that.
Still ahead on Morning Joe, the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, joins us. But first, we reported on the USS Theodore Roosevelt last week after its commanding officer was fired for warning about the coronavirus spreading on board his ship. Now a sailor is dead, and some 600 are sickened with the virus. We'll talk to retired four-star Admiral James Stavridis next on Morning Joe.
It is being contained. And do you not think it's being contained in this country?
I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer.
Well, but you said it's not being contained. So are you a doctor or a lawyer when you say it's not being contained? That's false. You just said something that's not true.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.